All right, good morning, everyone. Thank you for the introduction. Thank everyone for being here. I would like to get into my presentation of building out a cyber threat intelligence program. But first, I'm going to go over this quick disclaimer. All right, the views and opinions expressed in this presentation are solely mine and do not reflect the official policy or position of anyone else or any organization. And now I'd like to get into the journey on the agenda so you can see where our journey will be taking us. That is there. Thank you. All right, we're going to start off with about me, introduction to the challenge at hand, taking the first steps in organizational integration, identifying high-value assets and systems, prioritizing threat actors and building a support system, daily information gathering, dark web monitoring and leveraging tools, cyber threat intelligence reporting, and we'll finish off with managing responsibilities and lessons learned. All right, as you know, my name is Garland Curry. Current position, cyber threat intelligence officer. Some of my previous positions, security operations engineer and identity access management analyst. And things that I like doing when I'm not working, I love to play golf. I love to play tennis. I used to travel and play tournaments, had a great time. Computer gaming. I did have basketball on this list, but I'm getting a little bit older and so are my knees. So cross that off. And last but not least is my faithful companion. As you see, his name is Adonis over there. And things he likes to do when he's not watching me work, sleep. Yeah. All right, I have put on the board some initial goals that help build out a cyber threat intelligence program, gaining knowledge of the high value assets. A little bit more detail is also finding out the interdependencies and also their current vulnerabilities, gaining insight into threat actors. That involves also looking at them and finding any of the capabilities, motives that they may have as well. If there are any found, then you will be going into more of the analyzing of their threat MITRE ATT&CK matrix and finding out if they have any, if your organization has any, protections for that in the company. And last, the threat trend report. That trend report would also have in it the sector threat trends and more details into your threat actors targeting the organization. All right, so in the beginning, I love this slide. It's kind of like heavens and earth. But all right, so in the beginning, to better understand cybersecurity threats and threat mitigation strategies, it's a great idea to have a better understanding of the levels of CTI being operational, tactical, and strategic, and also gaining more insight into the threat MITRE ATT&CK matrix as well. Now, beyond that, I also have to say gaining a partnership with a CTI mentor is paramount. And I don't mean this just for CTI, this is for any profession. Being able to have a mentor gives you also that opportunity to look at things in a different light, a different perspective, to be able to push through challenges and honestly reach goals that you didn't know you can actually strive to. So I strongly recommend, like I said, obtaining and partnering with a CTI mentor. I've also put some slides here on the board that is for more understanding into the levels of CTI and also the threat MITRE ATT&CK matrix as well. So to better integrate the CTI program into the organization, I do recommend that you partner and have these interdepartmental meetings with different pillars in the IT department. I put some on the board here. Obviously, every organization is going to be a little different. I have here the infrastructure, the operations, the patching teams, the network teams, training and awareness teams. But being able to start these early communications with them, explain the CTI program, but also being able to start these initial conversations about high value assets is extremely important too, as you're starting these initial meetings with them. And another reason why it's extremely important is because when you have that communication and you're starting to build that relationship, it's easier to talk to, I want to say, the patching team, and obviously this is different in different organizations, the patching team, the network team that might be over the firewalls. And why I say that is for 0 days. I think last year, 2023, might have been one of the highest 0-day years for findings, if not the highest. So having that relationship is a strong way to be able to then go to those patching and network teams to talk to them about those vulnerabilities that are found. And again, organizational integration is a great way to start that communication. Now, looking at the crown jewels of the company, being that you've already started these meetings and you're starting to get kind of a leg up on talking to these teams about these different high value assets, you already, like I said, you already kind of have that head start. You're talking to the teams and you're trying to identify, obviously, and collect data to identify these high value assets and systems. This process, I'm going to say it's not a quick process. This is something that should be done thoroughly. This can take weeks to months, to be honest with you. But once this is found, then next comes the prioritization. So prioritizing these high value assets, there's a couple different values and aspects to look at. One is the criticality, how critical this system is in the environment. Obviously, every organization might be different. One might prioritize one more than the other, and it's the same system. It depends, like I said, on the criticality, how critical it is. If that or high value asset were to get compromised or possibly shut down, how would the company be able to function? The next would also be the reputational value. This is also something that needs to be taken into account. Obviously, if something happens to the system, how do you see the company's branding be affected? So this is also another piece that needs to be evaluated as well. Once this is done, the next step would be the protections. These protections might include anything from encryptions. It could include anything like user access management to make sure no one's going in there, or if the people are going in there, what they can do, and also possibly multi-factor authentication. Obviously, if any of these systems are facing the external internet, then obviously 100% it needs to be MFA protected. I've also provided a resource on the bottom of the slide also that kind of helps out look more into the high value assets. So some people say, what's the point of having or looking into threat actors? What's the point of looking and identifying and analyzing them? Is there any value? I would say there's extreme value in doing this. I would say being able to identify, analyze, and prioritize these, it creates, it gives an efficiency of something that's more targeted. And I would definitely say that being more efficiently targeted in the organization, it just gives a better overall security posture. There are many different ways of obtaining this information. There are peer analysis, data analysis, historical analysis. What seems to me to be more accurate and efficient would be the data-driven methodology, which is basically you taking those logs from your organization being the source of truth. So being able to find logs, and these logs, again, are different in every organization. They could be anything from your firewalls that have intrusion detection, intrusion prevention, or your email defenses that might be pulling phishing for you to analyze and also try to tie these to threat actors. Now, next to a CTI mentor, I would have to say an ISAC. In your sector, obviously every sector has different ISACs, but short of a mentor, and I would dare to say that if you were speaking to a mentor, they would actually push you towards checking out an ISAC in your sector as well. There are many different benefits of joining an ISAC for an organization. I have a few on here. An early warning system, being that you're able to, and I'm sorry, ISAC stands for Information Sharing and Analysis Center, didn't say that. But being a part and a member of an ISAC, it gives you an entire community of your sector. And that community could easily give you insight into something they're seeing. They could say, you know what, we're seeing this targeting us. It seems to be more of a volume of attack, and they're using these domains and different IOCs. That right there is paramount in giving you a heads up to be able to put something in your systems and in your defense mechanisms before it even touches your organization. Also, the network building, as I already stated, you're able to communicate with all members. You're able to send out surveys. You're even able to standardize policies. And what I mean by that, just an example, you can reach out to the entire member board or put a survey and ask them about email retention. You can ask them about different run books that they use to do to handle different incidents. And also, there's the monthly CTI trends that they also have. I can say that every ISAC gives the same reports, but I can say that they usually include threat trends, vulnerability advisories, ransomware data leak sites, and those are just to name a few, geopolitical threat trends. So it's a wealth of knowledge there. The next one, InfraGard, it's fairly new to me, but it is invaluable. It gives you the chance to partner and communicate with the government agencies. So these government agencies can be FBI. They specifically talk about the FBI, but there are other agencies there that give training workshops, different information sharing programs. But what it also gives is, again, the first thing I said was that unique ability to partner with the FBI and other government agencies. So that in itself gives you a lot of benefits. Maybe you're able to jump a few hoops if an incident ever were to happen. So you would be able, like I said, to quickly communicate with them and say, hey, we're seeing something. Are you able to assist us? And just having that ability is extremely important. I put a couple of resources for the national ISACs and also the InfraGard on the bottom of this slide. So when it comes time to start building out your trusted resources for daily information gathering, you can start internally, looking at different logs that you may have. Again, it really depends on your organization. There could be, like I said, firewall logs, there could be email, there could be your security team might have a SIEM to look at and analyze different alerts. And there also is the ISAC, which I've just spoke about, that has these reports that could be sent to you and you could analyze these as well, as far as the vulnerability advisories, the ransomwares, and the geopolitical threats reports. And then there's also news aggregators. I'm sure everyone has heard about those and probably already using them, but they are life-changing because before, you just kind of go to one side after the other. But with this, it's a single pane of glass. It's filtering in all the blogs, all the articles, and it's a night and day change. I do have Feedly on here. I've seen that work well, but again, there are other resources and there are paid resources. There are paid versions of these resources as well that may include AI that sift through the data and give you the ability to pull out the systems that you want to review. So dark web monitoring. This can be, I want to say, this can be a presentation all in itself. This can take a whole 30 minutes to discuss. Like with the slide before, the daily information gathering, that is something that can be passed off to a third-party vendor to do, as this can. This is something that doesn't have to be. If you have the budget for a vendor, that is good to do. But again, these are something that I would think that you should at least understand the processes and understand how to do them in case your budget ever gets lower or you're supposed to be monitoring these in general. You at least have the process down. But before this happens, I would say you have to talk to legal for anything. You have to get that clearance. You have to make sure there's no legal implications. If you get that clearance, then I would move on to getting a host that is a host machine that is off the network, never been on the network, never been on the domain. I would put a VPN on there, and then I would spin up a VM. And then I'd log into that VM. And then I'd put a VPN on that VM. And then that's the one that I'd use to go into these dark websites. You don't want any connections. Obviously, we already know the implications. You don't want any connections that involve your company or your personal resources. I also put on here a email proxy. I suggest, doesn't have to be this one, but I suggest one being created when you create those accounts into those dark websites. So the email gets forwarded over from that email to another email that you check, but that email that you check should also be anonymized. And it should also not include any, like I said, any data or anything from your personal life or work. I put a resource here on the bottom of this slide as well, a government site that explains more of the dark web monitoring. I think it might also get into a little bit of possibly how to acquire some of those things off the dark web, but I specifically promote just passive monitoring. And I didn't say that on here as well, so I definitely need to mention that, but this is passive monitoring. I know it's the title of this slide, so I might have, should have said that in the beginning. But this is specifically passive. This is, you're not going on there or posting anything or trying to get anything. This is just you looking at the dark web and seeing if maybe if your company or your vendor or your vendor's vendor is on there, just again, passively. Now, I consider this a very efficient way to have your CTI program. This is leveraging other teams' tools. And again, this is different from every organization. I put on here the vulnerability management, patching management, endpoint management solutions, and also firewall UIs. And having this access, and this is read-only access. This is you just being able to have, like I said, just a view into the system. And what this creates is a lot of benefits, I would say. I would say this creates autonomy and verification. And what I mean by that is you are the only team that needs to see there may be a vulnerability based on your daily information logs, and then going into these systems and checking if there is indeed a vulnerability in those in your environment. So when you go to your patching team and you say, hey, we see this CVE found, we verified that it's here and we need you to work on it, that automatically creates a better relationship and actionable intelligence. That in itself is going to build very positive relationships, knowing that you're doing this, you're not giving them any to-do work because they'll definitely put that to the side. So being able to give them this information, it's very beneficial and very efficient for the team. And the last part is the enhancing situational awareness. I gave a little touch on this before. Like I said, seeing something, for example, seeing a threat actor, you're seeing a threat actor possibly targeting the organization, and now you're saying these are their most used CVEs. You being able to then look into the patching or the vulnerability and say, you know what, these are not patched. These are still have those vulnerabilities. So you would immediately have that situational awareness to look at your security posture and be able to get that remediated. As far as intelligence reporting, this can, I want to say, it won't be set in stone as far as the frequency. This is something that can be weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, even quarterly. This will change if need be. Some of the sections that are more likely to stay would be the section, the sector threat trends. Again, these can possibly be obtained from your ISACs, but these, like I said, are the overall sector trends. The perimeter defense findings are more internal logs, as I stated before, about the emails or your the email security solutions or your security SIEM, and being able to look at these threat actors and put them on those reports, and also vulnerabilities found. This is important, very important, because as you're doing your daily information gathering, you're seeing that these are threats being identified, and you're reporting them on your report. But it sounds simple, or it sounds like it's not a big deal, but that's a big deal, because that's your team being proactive. That's your team going in, doing the work, finding something, and actually reporting that it is indeed possibly a vulnerability. And you won't just put that there. You'd obviously put that, there's a remediation plan, you'd be following up, but at least you've notated this is a win by being proactive. What this does is it shows immediate value, and it also balances the long-term, I want to say the long-term analysis, because in the background, you're also reviewing these threat actors, you're looking at their MITRE ATT&CK matrix, you're seeing the threat attack avenues, you're setting up meetings to possibly put remediations in for those, which is going to take more time. So you being able to look at these quicker wins and put them on the report, it kind of balances out those longer analysis with these quicker wins, which is very helpful. When it comes time to manage responsibilities, and I've given a lot of data, so at some point your team's going to want to start looking at the engaging, the efficiency, the quality of work that you're providing. Some ways to stay more efficient is to make sure there's different processes and workflows in place, to make sure that you're being efficient, to also make sure that your team has the right resources and tools to be able to complete their tasks. When you're speaking with management, it's also good to make sure you have an open line of communication always with management. And it's also good to be able to speak to them about any workloads that you have, any updates, and any challenges that you see. As far as expanding out, and I do suggest putting together timelines and roadmaps to help visualize where you're going and visualize team capabilities and growth. And also to have proactive meetings of things to think about that may be over the horizon, that may be difficulties. As far as, I'll just give an example, AI. Maybe you want to talk to your team to make sure there is an AI policy in place. You don't want employees putting company data on large language models, thinking they're being more efficient, but they're really just leaking company data. Because if that large language model gets compromised, what happens to that data? Is that data stored there? So just things to think of to be proactive and have meetings with your team. And some lessons learned here. One is the optimizing of the reporting. It's important to just make sure that you're on the same page with those frequencies of the reporting. Sometimes reporting can become tedious, to be honest with you. Not time consuming, but maybe tedious if they're asked for on a weekly basis. Maybe your team can't support that, and maybe you need to basically negotiate. Maybe it's weekly better, so depending on resources. Also, the naming conventions. I've seen that very difficult at some points to track when you're looking at threat platforms. One threat platform might say advanced persistent threat 29, and another one might say cozy bear or wizard spider. So when you're trying to, I guess, look at the different threat platforms that might give you different data on those same threat actors, sometimes it can become difficult. I've put a couple of resources on here to kind of help out with those different aliases they may have in different threat platforms. Also, the high value assets, I just want to mention those meetings. Again, they may become difficult as far as it's going to be you taking thorough notes of the data. So again, I just want to say that is something that you're going to have to push through and be thorough about. I also want to mention that this is something that should be done every 6 months or yearly, because obviously organizations change. A database may go offline and another one comes back online, and that one deals with the interdependency of that system. So having those checks every 6 months, every year is something that is very important to mention. Clear communication with management, making sure you have clear and concise goals and making sure that you are meeting expectations as well. And active chat threads. I would say active chat threads are something that should really be done. It's basically putting different teams, different security engineers of the different departments all in the same chat, and this is just to be proactive. So if you make a change, one person in IT department and engineer might see something that also needs to be changed, even though they weren't initially involved in it. So just having that one chat with everyone is never a bad idea. I've never seen something bad happen when everyone's on the same page, at least. So that's definitely something good to mention. Lastly, CTI demands an unwavering commitment to improvements and challenging and embracing challenges. And I would have to say that learning from your mistakes is a part of the process. And sometimes it's not just about the destination. Sometimes it is about the journey. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Garland. We have plenty of time for questions. So we'll
Right.
take a couple from Slack and then I will do the mic running. So folks in the room, start thinking of your questions. We'll kick off one that came in via Slack. Do you find that CTI only applies to larger companies compared to smaller institutions? What are your thoughts on that?
I would say that it's a give and take. Honestly, it's organization by organization. Obviously, your critical infrastructure is going to be something that wants to have something like that in place. But I would also dare to say that being proactive and efficient, well, more so proactive for an organization, for any organization that might be susceptible to attacks, is something that would want a CTI team, a CTI program.
Yeah, absolutely. And, to add in, one thing that I've found is you don't have to be a named CTI analyst to do CTI, right? Some of the best CTI people I've seen are SOC analysts or system administrators who are just curious about why something is happening. So I think especially on maybe a smaller organization, if you don't have a CTI team of 10 people,
Yeah,
that's okay, right?
Right.
Yeah, maybe you're a SOC analyst, maybe you're just curious. I think, right, it's going to apply in different ways, but I think, yeah, to your point, anyone who cares about, tracking threats to improve your decision making, you can use CTI. That's what it's all about. Any questions in the room? We got one back there. Give me a moment. Actually, I'm going to come close since it's a quicker walk for me.
Hello. I have two, if possible. The first one is at the beginning of the presentation, you mentioned that it's key and helpful to find a mentor in CTI, right? And maybe that it's more easy in like first world countries like US, kind of, right? UK, but how do you recommend to achieve that in third world countries, right? Where there are less professionals.
I get what you're saying. And I mean, there's also, I mean, I kind of like want to say, just like this program itself, this summit, there's in person and there's virtual. So just having those Slack communications as well, and possibly looking at different ISACs and maybe trying to see if you can join those. You don't have to be an organization to try to join InfraGard as well. It's just trying to find, like you said, those gaps to get in, but it might not be an in-person visit. It might be something virtual. And again, like people are communicating with the Slack, there's no reason why they wouldn't be able to reach out and ask questions as well. So.
And the second one is on the organizational integration slide. There's one point that you said improve the outcomes of a CTI is improve response to remediating any zero-day vulnerabilities. Can you specify what do you mean by remediating 0 days vulnerabilities? Like in what sense?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand that question.
On the organizational integration slide,
Right.
there's one point in the outcomes that says that the role of a CTI, right, is improve response to remediating any zero-day vulnerabilities. Can you talk a little bit can you talk a little bit more about that? About what do you mean?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. Like there was one word.
Yeah, vulnerabilities.
Oh.
So thinking about, right, how should teams maybe remediate or even respond to zero-day vulnerabilities or vulnerabilities overall?
Okay, I'm sorry. So as far as that and touching on those 0 days, again, I would say that it really takes the team because these are vulnerabilities. These are coming out fast. Like I said, 2023 was one of the highest amounts of 0 days out. So being able to remediate and respond to them really takes a team because it's, like I said, it comes up all of a sudden. So being able to be in contact and have those relationships with those teams, with the infrastructure team, with the patching team, and being able to collaborate with them. And like I said, being able to have that chat that with all of the IT department engineers, because there could be something that they see on their end that they may have a database tied to. So being able to just have that communication and that team aspect really helps out with those 0 day remediations, to be honest with you.
Awesome. There was a hand back here. Get one more in person. Excellent. Lots of hands in person. I like this.
Jeremy from Deloitte, great presentation, and I like all the focus on personal relationships and communication. Your slide on leveraging other teams' tools, can you speak to tools and or landmines when navigating the ask to go behind the curtain, even if it's read only, you know, across an organization and getting access to data simply to read it so that you can better your output maybe back to them. Cause, kind of fascinated by the sensitivities and personal relationships on that slide. Thanks.
Okay, well, I mean, just speaking generally, I mean, those asks, I mean, there might be some pushback at first, but I mean, at the end of the day, it's security. It's bettering the organization. It's helping protect the organization. So I'm not trying to be harsh, but I see pushback, but I would say that eventually there should be the access given to at least read only, and there should be at least maybe a little bit of training as well, or maybe you can soften that up with saying, you know what, we want some access, but you know, we're willing to get your training to make sure we're not doing anything or looking at anything we're not supposed to be, and just kind of softening that blow of where we would like access. Obviously, a lot of teams don't want to share. Sometimes it's theirs, but I mean, it's a team in general, it's an organization. So at the end of the day, I would see no issues or no reasons why they wouldn't share at the end of the day, at least that read-only access.
Good question. I'm actually going to throw him under the bus. Lincoln Caffin, I can't say his last name. Lincoln is giving a talk later. He actually has done a ton of work, so I'd go find him in the hallway and pick his brain on that. Or is he on your team? Oh, he's your boss's boss. Oh, you're right there. Lincoln, you should talk to your teammate here. I saw a hand in the back of the room, and then we'll get some Slack questions.
That's funny.
All right, I'll go back and then I'll go front. Threw you under the bus.
Hey, Garland. Thank you
Hello.
so much. That was a great presentation. I really appreciate it. I'm new to CTI. Great question as well. I experience that every day in my position, especially with SLAs being, you know, you have to check in with legal. One of my issues that I'm experiencing, and I want to field it to the crowd, is we have several vendors for threat intelligence, and we just get neutral responses, and there's not a lot. We're paying money and we're getting like a no guidance for certain IOCs. So I wonder if you like vetting the vendors and their threat feeds, but also if anyone's experienced problems with IPv6, because there's zero threat intelligence that I've seen because of the nature of forensics and the encapsulation that goes through IPv4 to then IPv6, that it's really hard to get accurate information. And I see as IPv6 expands, is going to be more of a threat for threat actors to use IPv6 for attacks. So I just didn't know if is anyone experiencing this? Is this on anyone's radar? Thank you for your time.
Well, I would say, I mean, as far as IPv6, like you just said, it's scarce as far as that in the community. I honestly don't have a lot of experience with the IPv6, like you said, vulnerabilities. I wish I could get more information for you and I can share that with you. But as far as that, really haven't seen that being very prevalent at the moment.
Yeah, same. If anyone else has resources, feel free to drop those in Slack. I personally haven't seen a ton of IPv6 indicators and feeds. And I'll hit your first question because I work for a vendor. You should be tough on your vendors. If they're not giving you something you're paying them for, right, customized cyber threat intel, I will say it's really tough if you're trying to, you know, give intel or feeds or indicators to a bunch of orgs, but keep following up, right? If you're paying someone, they should be giving you value. So I work for a vendor and I'll say, don't let us off the hook. We'll do one in person, then we'll get some Slack folks.
Hi, my name's Kate. My background is 15 years in military intelligence, space, and geospatial intelligence. I'm brand new to cyber threat intelligence, only been about for a year in the corporate world. One thing that, at least for us, that I'm really struggling with is when it comes to like critical vulnerabilities, especially if they're exploited, who goes out and finds those vulnerabilities in our environment? And I know you said that that should be the CTI's, possibly their job. And we're a very small team, and we're finding that it's really hard for us to do it or to have vulnerability management do it. What do you suggest in those situations when we're trying to figure out who should be looking for the vulnerability within our network?
I mean, I would say that would be, I mean, organization to organization. If I had my choice, I would say let the CTI team have the access as well. Obviously, if they needed to verify, but I would say just kind of getting the middleman out of the way, basically, so to speak, and being able to do it yourself if possible. but there might be regulations in your organization that prohibit that. So it's really case by case, to be honest with you.
Yeah, we had a couple of vulnerability questions on Slack as well. So I'll let you address those kind of offline, but definitely a challenge for a lot of orgs, starting to see some themes. A question that came in from Slack. So you talked about information gathering, daily information gathering. The question is, why would you review logs as part of that? Is the idea to match indicators for detection, or what could you talk a little bit about the importance of, reviewing logs?
I would say it's a little bit of both. It's for indicators as well. As you're doing the analysis, it shouldn't just be getting information from external sources. It should be you also maybe doing a little bit of threat hunting, looking in your organization, looking at those different vulnerabilities or different alerts that you see. I honestly, I don't have an issue with a little bit of threat hunting and going in and looking at different alerts that look funny, to be honest with you. So I would say it is important to look at internal logs because, again, it also gives you that security posture of your organization. So I kind of like to be able to see and touch everything I possibly can just to be able to see, hey, something doesn't look right here. And you might not be on the security operations team, but you giving them that heads up as well is never going to be a wrong idea.
Yeah, and I would just add, right, this is where you can also add some kind of tiering,
sure.
especially if you have a larger security org, right?
True.
Maybe you have SOC analysts, or my team has detection engineers who
Right.
take that first crack. And then I've found a lot of CTI teams kind of overlook the value of what you have in your own network, to your point, right? Sometimes you're kind of focused on external sources, but I think it's important, to your point, to evaluate what's happening internally, logs, or if you have events or an incident database, because that can be a really, really valuable source as well. All right. Well, I think we are nearing the end of our time, so we'll go ahead. Please join me in thanking Garland.
Thank you.